As most of the organizations are now adopting to Microsoft's zero trust model, it's need of the hour that organizations also implement the least privileged access model, in which a user is provided with the least access in the Azure Active Directory. Hello, and welcome to our video series on Azure security. The topic for today's is privileged identity management. When we talk about threat in one line, the threat for today's organizations are higher access for the users than needed. Users are provided with more of an access than they actually need. This leads to the compromise of system whenever a user is compromised or whenever a user turns rogue. Also, a user should be provided with enough information, enough stats, enough graphs that are needed for him or her. Uh, So what's the solution? The solution is checking on the users which have high privileged roles, because these are the roles which are most critical for an organization. Checking which users have a global administrator role, the security reader role, or any of the roles that are assigned to any of the users in an organization. Get a justification whenever user is assigned a particular role. So there should be a justification. So for example, I'm an admin for an organization and I'm assigning a particular role, let's say a global administrator role, to a user. Then I must provide a justification of why that user needs a global administrator role, why a user needs a security reader role or a security administrator role. Maybe that user is going to do a VAPT of our organization. So this kind of justification helps the global administrators, helps the organization to identify why a particular user and till when a particular user will be needing a higher access. Get a notification when a user is assigned a role. This helps us to mitigate the risk of, suppose a high privileged account is compromised and that account is now giving a higher roles to all other users. Then we can be notified whenever a user is assigned a higher privileged role. So any assigned role, any user which is assigned any of the roles should, uh, the administrator should know about any such role assignments. And finally, just in time access. For example, we need to assign a user access to the security reader or security administrator role for let's say 2 weeks. Then we should be able to grant that access only for 2 weeks, and after that 2 weeks the access should automatically be revoked. Privileged identity management. This is the solution that is viable, that is feasible for organizations. This privileged identity management is a module, it's a service provided by Azure. This comes in P1 or P2 licenses, and it provides limited access to certain users, limited time access to certain users. Approvals before an access is granted. Limited time access means just in time access. Approvals before an access is granted, we can ensure that there are certain reviewers which are there before an access is granted. Multi-factor authentication to verify the integrity of user. Revoke access easily. We can anytime revoke an access. We can anytime revoke an assignment. Justify the granting of roles. There's a proper justification column, and get a detailed summary of all the roles assigned. We get an audit history where we see all the assignments made in the Azure AD. So let's jump to the practical. This is my okay. This is my dashboard. Let's go to privileged identity management. I've already enabled the P2 license. And let me go to Azure AD roles. Wait a second, and let's go to assignments. So there are two kinds of assignments: eligible assignments and active assignments. With active assignments, we mean that the roles are currently active. For example, we see the beta user. The user is currently assigned the global administrator role for around 1 month, and that user is currently activated. In eligible roles, the user may or may not be active for now, but has been assigned a role. The user, it's on the onus of the user to get back into his console and then ask for the assignment or assign it himself. Let's see how that works. So when we add an assignment, let's select a role of global administrator. And then it will ask for the selected members, and we select Gamma. We select one user and next. So there are two options now, active and eligible. When we say active, the user is currently is instantly assigned the role, and there is no if and but. There is no not anything that a user has to do in his console. We can permanently assign, or we can assign from any day or time. Let's say we permanently assign that role. Enter justification, testing. Because active is not what we are looking for now, let's say we go for eligible. The user will be permanently eligible, but for that a user has to go to his console and then ask for the approval or assign it himself. It takes a few seconds for assigning a role to a member. Gamma is being assigned the role of global administrator and he is assigned. Now let's refresh. Okay, so here it is. Gamma has been assigned the permanent role. We can remove that or update that. Let's go to, as we see the Gamma is not listed here in the active assignments. So before Gamma actually sees the global administrator role, we have to go to the console of Gamma. For that, we will have to sign in using the Gamma user, and we'll have to also verify using an OTP or any of the MFA. As we see, we do not have access. I go to Azure AD roles, assignments, and we see here that you have eligible administrative assignments for this resource. Activate now. And here we activate, and it will validate, and it requires an additional verification. Okay. I want to set up a different method. I want to use the phone, confirm, enter phone number. It's of India. Let's type in my, text me a code. And this is how my MFA has been verified. And this will take a few seconds before the role is activated. I have to specify the reason. Let's say specifying testing and activate. So it will take a few seconds before the role is actually activated, and I'm presented with a global administrator role. So in the meantime, we can also discuss that while assigning this eligible roles, we can also assign the reviewers through which we can pass the request of assigned or active assignments through that reviewer. So that reviewer will pass the user as should be given access or not to be given access. It will refresh in. Okay, it's refreshing. And now we have activated a role. We have active assignments. So this covers the justification part and the activation part. Now let's go to my main account. And let me show you a few other things. In the active assignments, I'll be seeing in the active assignments the gamma role. Yes, the gamma user has been activated. And this is a permanent user. Also, we can see the audit history. This is my audit history. And also we can manage the settings. Let's say I want to manage the setting of global administrator role. And here I'm presented with all the facts that I need. So whenever there's an activation of role, I get an alert. We can manage this from here. Send notifications when members are assigned as active role, we get a notification. Then we can permanently assign this role. On activation requires MFA. Approvers, there are none approvers for now. We can set the approvers. So these are some of the settings that we can manage for each of the role depending on the organization's business logic. Now talking about the notification, as I was talking about all the roles and I assigned the roles, let's see my account of did I get a notification. As we can see, Gamma is assigned a role for the global administrator in the default directory. And this notification is given to the administrator, the global administrator role. I get all the information. Now, when that user does activate the role, I also get a notification for activation of that role. So this is how privileged identity management works. Here in the console, I can watch all the roles that I have that have been assigned the privileged role, all the assignments, all my audit history. These are all my active assignments. And this is how I can manage them. I can also remove the access. And that user will not be a global administrator anymore. So this is all about privileged identity management. See you all in the next video. Keep subscribing.